Jesus was right. Neither were tears forming in Peter's eyes. Those quick and fast and easy, "I'm not who you think I am," coming out of his mouth. All we know is the haunting echo of that rooster's cock-a-doodle-doo. We find ourselves outside in the cold with Peter dwelling alongside him in his shame. Oh, Jesus was right. I was wrong. I told him I'd lay my life down for him, and I screwed up. I thought I would lay my life down for his teachings, his ideals, for the sake of the way. I'm just a failure of a disciple. I'm a failure of a human being. With the call of that rooster still in our ears, we know Peter's pain around that coal fire on a cold night. We, too, live with Peter in this story. We live with the sad and shameful reality that far too many times we deny knowing Jesus too. And denying that we know Jesus is about far more than simply denying you have faith or admitting that you have doubt or saying, "I don't believe anymore." No. Coming to worship today doesn't mean that we're on the right side, and those folks who chose another option are somehow Peter. We're the faithful disciple in here now? No. We all hear that cock-a-doodle-doo of the rooster, and if there's any of Peter in you, if you're anything like me, I think we know that pangy ache of whatever emptiness in your stomach, in your gut, that tells you, I've been caught. I'm in the midst of a lie. I'm trapped in denial. I'm captive to sin. And the sin isn't the lying or the denying. It isn't that. I don't think. I think we are caught in the perpetual sin of not being honest about who we really are. A close friend of mine has been blogging each day for Lent. It's been her spiritual practice. And the other day she blogged about this human reality of not being honest about who we truly are. She was struggling through a family emergency that is now okay, but she posted about how much she felt that day like Peter, caught up in the stress of the situation, unable to control her feelings or actions. She wrote she was angry like Peter, stubborn like Peter, stupid and acting like Peter. And how in the stress of trying to hold it all together for the sake of her kids, for the sake of those around her in the emergency, she found herself feeling especially like Peter, feeling alone, not able to be honest about what she felt and who she was. Cock-a-doodle-doo. Brothers and sisters, we find ourselves in denial every day, I think. Stuck in patterns of self-denial, absolutely. As we live behind those masks, we think the world or your family or even your pastor want to see or need to see, but too, we find ourselves stuck in a pattern where it's not just denying ourselves, we also, like Peter, deny knowing Jesus. In our daily lives, whether it's in the simple choices I make or the actions or inactions, I deny that I follow Jesus. When we deny justice or equality to all, whether our impressions are guided by stereotypes and hate, when we deny that someone whose ideas are on the opposite end of the spectrum as our own doesn't have a heart that beats like ours, it is then too that we deny knowing Jesus. Megan Rohrer, the ELCA's first openly transgender pastor, reflected this week on the death of Westboro Baptist's pastor and the hatred that came through his words and actions. But in speaking about that specific case, she also spoke, I believe, about our own sin-bound reality. Megan wrote, "We look in the mirror, and most all of us have more than our fair share of self-doubt and shame. We see all those flaws. We lie in bed, sleepless, thinking, focusing, even stuck on all those denials we've made, with a longing to redo our past to make better choices. We wish we weren't who we are. I think there's a part of us that wishes we didn't hear that cock-a-doodle-doo. But my friends, that cock-a-doodle-doo is the mirror moment in our story today. It's Peter's mirror. It's his calling to reflect on his denials. So too, as we look into the waters of baptism, where we daily die and rise, it is our calling to reflect, especially in Lent, on our denials, on our shame-filled places. It's time to look with Lenten eyes at all those places and times when we aren't honest about who we are. And as our eyes look deeper into this story of denial, we see how easy it is to deny Jesus. We also don't see Jesus deny Peter. For all our denying, Jesus doesn't deny us. Peter's denial isn't the end of Peter's story. The Bible tells us some more. And in fact, it's not the end of Jesus' relationship with Peter or with you and I. One of my favorite writers on John's Gospel points out that Peter's story of denial is woven together with Jesus' story. Peter's, "No, not me," is woven with Jesus' questioning by those pushy priests, that group of powerful people with intense, hard questions. And the good news in today's gospel, the good news in our life's stories, is that while Peter cannot face those questions, while we might not be able to face those questions, while we all quickly deny knowing Jesus, Jesus stands up to those who question him. Jesus speaks a word of truth, and Jesus denies nothing. For all our denials, Jesus doesn't deny us. And while all of those cock-a-doodle-doo moments in your life and Peter's life might feel like the end, that place where there's no turning back, just as my own denials make me wonder if I've done one too many, Jesus lives out a different story. That's God's story for the world, for Peter, for us. My friends, God's grace is manifest in Jesus' true words. Words of unconditional forgiveness. Jesus refuses to deny us. God's grace gives us ultimate acceptance. Acceptance to be honest about who we are. To be honest about who God has made us to be. And as the image comes to me, God invites us with ultimate acceptance to get off of that teeter-totter between good enough and not good enough that we play on every single day. God, you say, get off having to worry if you're good enough or feeling like you're not good enough. We are to be free to share in this acceptance of Jesus, who will never deny you. Jesus will carry out that promise that Peter kept, the promise to lay down his life for his friends. And it is in Jesus' dying and rising that we find acceptance and love shown to all sorts of deniers, to you, to me, even to Fred Phelps. Jesus is freeing us to be who God made us to be. Peter is more than just an angry, impulsive, stupid disciple who screws up time after time after time. God says, Peter, you are a passionate, devout believer who can be pivotal in sharing the non-denying love of Christ with the world. For us, too, we find freedom today in Jesus' acceptance of us. We can find freedom to be honest, to be real, to be who God made and called us to be. Whether you are a devout grandparent, or a faithful friend, or the person who brings cake to every friend you have in need. Maybe it's to be a generous giver. But maybe today the freedom of God's good news is that we are free to be broken and tired and fearful parents. Or maybe it's to be an angry, frustrated, loving sibling. Or simply to be an honest, vulnerable human. A child of God. That is all we've been made to be. In Jesus, with God's grace, that cotton-doodle-doo moment of shame, of uh-oh, is transformed. A moment of reflection now upon the multiple blessings of God's grace, of God's love, of a love that will never deny